What common fire hazards are found in home, and how can homeowners kind of help mitigate the risks that those cause?
Yeah, so there's several. Cooking hazards are the leading cause. Electrical hazards just due to faulty wiring, using a lot of extension cords, or what we would say it looks like an octopus. There's an extension cord off of, another extension cord.
We actually talked with one of our inspectors, Jason Ray, and he gave us kind of a fun fact. The risk of dying in a home fire is cut in half in homes with working smoke alarms.
Wow.
So pretty big thing there, 50%.
Yeah, that's huge.
Welcome to Lawrence Real and Local, Keepin It Real podcast, presented to you by the Lawrence Board of Realtors. We are your go-to source for all things real estate in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm Lexi Haskin with Flint Hills Mortgage.
And I'm Emily Robertson with McGrew Real Estate. Together, we're here to make the journey to homeownership a breeze. Join us as we share insider insights, expert advice, and a dose of fun along the way.
Welcome to Lawrence Real and Local, Keepin It Real podcast by the Lawrence Board of Realtors. We are joined here today by McKenzi, Ezell, and Kevin, Joles. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks.
Well, we're pretty excited.
Absolutely.
Emily had brought up doing a fire safety episode, and I was like, oh, sweet, that'd be pretty cool. And then, especially since, I was in Leadership Lawrence this year with McKenzi, and we just had so many firefighters and EMS people in our class. We were protected.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We were the safest class.
I love it.
So I was like, I know just who to ask and who could help us coordinate.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, great.
So I brought along Kevin, and Kevin is our division chief of EMS. I oversee our admin, and so I like to say I have a little bit of fire knowledge, but we went to the professionals for some of these answers. But Kevin actually has that real experience that he can speak to a little bit today.
I love it.
Well, how about you guys give us a little background about how you got to where you're at and why you love what you do?
Please, I'd love for you to start this one.
Okay. Well, so McKenzi Ezell, I work for Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical. This is my 5th year. I oversee our admin division, and so I do accreditation. We do a lot of the human resources, the finance stuff, kind of the things to keep the doors open, support for the fire medical department. And I got here through going to school for business and really liked the fire medical service atmosphere, the culture, and the ability to support the community but not have to be on that front line responding to patients. And that's really not what I'm made for, but I want to be a part of the system. So That's what this job allows me to do.
That's awesome.
I was going to be a cop. And then my brother came to town, who was in the middle of his paramedic program, and said, "You're not going to be a cop." And he went and signed me up, unbeknownst to me, at the local volunteer organization. And 28 years later, here I am.
He signed you up?
Oh, yeah.
That's so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Dropped me off at...
The rest is history.
Right, yeah. That's truly... it was a miserable 4 months. Nobody wanted to talk to me. I thought, man, this job is terrible. And then I made a comment about how terrible my brother was or something, and they kind of looked at me weird, like, "Do you really think that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's terrible." And they're like, "Well, we think the same thing. He came in here and told us that he was going to beat us all up if we ever let you get hurt." And I'm like, "Oh, no, like that guy doesn't run nothing but his mouth." So we all became quick friends and been doing this for a long time. So I've been at several agencies. This is my 28th year.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well, again, thank you for coming. We're going to say
Yeah.
it so many times because we are just so thankful.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it, the opportunity.
Yeah, and we can also do kind of a rundown of the department. Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical is a fire medical department that we provide fire suppression services for the city of Lawrence and also Grant Township, which is up north. And then we do EMS countywide. So we're a unique agency in the sense that we joke about having mom and dad at the city side and the county side. So we have a city manager and a county administrator that they work on our governance agreement, and they dictate what we do, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of different things that we do. But we run about 17,000 calls a year. We have 160 employees. We have 5 fire medical stations here in the city of Lawrence, and then 2 medical stations out in the county, one in Eudora and one in Baldwin. So we have an ambulance and a fire truck running out of all of the city stations, 24-hour staff, and a medic unit out in those other 2 stations.
You guys stay busy.
Yeah.
We do stay busy.
It's increased about 1,000 calls a year for the last several years.
Wow. Is
Oh
that
my
like
gosh.
with population increase, or is it kind of...
The population probably doesn't increase as rapidly as the call volume does. Some of it's repetitive calls, and sometimes it's just depends on the weather, depends on
That makes sense.
the silly season. It just kind of just depends. There's really no rhyme or reason
You say
to
the
it.
silly season?
Yeah, there's a lot of silly seasons. The weather plays a lot of parts in, obviously, auto accidents during the wintertime. And Kansas weather and specifically can aid to wildland fires and things like that. The medical side of it, there's no real rhyme or reason to that I can see, at least. I mean, we're probably pretty consistent on all that. I like to say 80% of what we do is medical. Firefighters don't like to admit that, but that's just commonplace across the country, is about 80%, anywhere between 70 and 80% is medical. And not all of those get transported to the hospital, but about 80% of our 80% do.
Yeah. And so do you guys also do a lot of fire awareness things in the community and safety? Because, I mean, I remember just being at the elementary school and having the fire truck come out and just to go through and practice like a little drill and just all of that stuff. So how often do you go out and do things like that in the community for awareness?
It's all the time.
Yeah.
It may not be formal. We do a lot of formal request visits at the schools, and a lot of parades and just the regular public education stuff. But every day that our firefighters are at the store or out in public doing inspections, they want to interact with the public, and they appreciate those opportunities because the fire side, although there's not as many calls in structure fires as there used to be, it's because of building materials, it's because of fire prevention and the steps that our division takes to prevent fires in the home. There's just not as many, but it doesn't mean that our people don't have to be any less prepared. And so they want to make sure that the message is clear on how to be safe, and you start that with children. I remember, just like anybody, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, fire trucks still turn your head. And the older I get and the longer I've been doing this, I probably make a little more fun of them than, like, I always like to say, there go the heroes, and my kids look at me like you're an idiot. But it's still, a big part of our culture, and, both in the service and outside the service, because it's a staple of our community to have the big red trucks. And if they're not red, then there's something wrong with them.
And we do have a education program, a public education program, and we have two divisions primarily in the department, the prevention division and the training division, that oversee those efforts. So there are very unique, specialized programs within it that they focus on those different audiences, whether it's elementary school or high school or, like Kevin was saying, just the broader community at the public events.
Yeah. I mean, something I remember that sticks in my brain: stop, drop, and roll.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I was like, do you guys still say that?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Never changed. Yep. It's still, you should still do that
Still
even
same
as an
protocol.
adult. Yeah. Doesn't matter how old you are still. If you're on fire, do that.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I recently found out, just because we didn't have this in the community that I grew up in, but we take a unit. It's like a trailer out to schools for kids to go through.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
To see what
I did
it's
that
like
too.
when it's full of smoke and how you truly cannot see down the hallway. So you have to have that plan, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
And they also do that with KU students. I'm not sure about the other universities, but I just went to one of the trainings at the University of Kansas where they fill up a dorm hall with smoke, and it really kind of puts it into reality check of you need to kind of know where you are and be prepared.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of jumping into our questions here, what common fire hazards are found in home, and how can homeowners kind of help mitigate the risks that those cause?
Yeah, so there's several. Cooking hazards are the leading cause, unattended. So it's, the best thing to do is just stay attentive to whatever you're cooking. Don't walk away. It's tough. Kids, animals, the TV, things, your phone, that you're just not paying attention. So typically things on the stove or in the oven are going to be your most likely causes of those fires in the kitchen. Electrical hazards, just due to faulty wiring, things that may be not on par with what code would appreciate. But then the addition of using a lot of extension cords, or what we would say, it looks like an octopus. There's an extension cord off of, another extension cord, or just a lot of wiring that's coiled up. So we want to prevent that. Heating equipment. Some of the ladies in the office are cold a lot. And so those types of heaters, if they're too close to something, can catch your clothes on fire, and then you wouldn't be in stop, drop, and roll. But there's just different elements that they could be close against that would end up causing a fire. Talking about one of the things that I see a lot is in everybody's own home is just the lint trap in your dryer. Cleaning that out. Usually I don't think about it until it's already started. And so I try to clean it while it's going, and it usually gets sucked down the tube. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. So, but where does that go? It certainly doesn't just shoot out of the top of your house. And so it gets stuck in the dryer vent, and you need to have that probably cleaned out. If you're able to do it yourself safely, that's great. If not, then you hire a professional to get that removed so that it's not clogging and producing good ventilation so that they're not going to cause a fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And how often should the dryer vent be cleaned out, do you think?
You should clean your dryer vent after or before every single time, but I would say probably once or twice a year would be good.
That's good to know.
So I've seen these things even recently pop up. I don't know if it's because of the different safety classes I've been going to or whatever, but I guess my phone hears it, and now it's been giving me ads. And there are these things that are fire blankets that people just go on top, and they are saying that might be better than using just like a fire extinguisher, because a lot of people don't know how to use fire extinguishers properly. So then it might be worse, and then you're trying to go around. Are those fire blankets even like good?
I think that everything has its best intention. I would imagine if used per recommendation of the manufacturer, they're going to work fine because that's how they're designed. They're usually typically studied or used by people who have probably done it 10 or 15 times before just to get that perfect take for the marketing campaign. And there's no nervousness or fear involved. And typically what happens when people use a fire extinguisher or a blanket like that or some other type of retardant, they don't finish the job. And so they end up throwing the whole extinguisher at the fire as opposed to letting it just squeeze all of the chemical out onto the fire. And so then they just throw the fire extinguisher at the fire and then run away. And then you never know if you finish the job until you turn around, your house is on fire. So I won't recommend any of those things because it's not really what we should be doing. But I do think having a fire extinguisher and it is worth taking a class on how to use a fire extinguisher because it's a very simple task. It's the procedure is very short. It doesn't take very long to expel a fire extinguisher, but just knowing that it does take a little bit of time as opposed to just one puff and then you're done. It could take the whole thing.
Well, and there's YouTube for that.
And there's YouTube, yeah. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be in person. You just need that demonstration because whenever you're going to do that, right? That doesn't happen to all. That doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tube it up.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Tube it up.
Tube it up.
So can you provide an overview on the importance of just like smoke alarms, carbon monoxide inspectors, and all that?
Yeah. So there is. It's a requirement to be in every home via the code. It's best if they're hardwired into your house. That way that they have got constant power. They have battery backups in them. That's why they have a battery in them. You don't have to have them hardwired if you don't have the ability or the home is old enough that you don't have that. You can buy them. It's recommended that they are changed out every 10 years. The whole detectors, they expire. So on there, it's a kind of a born-on date or an expiration date of when they expire. So 10 years is that. You should change your smoke detector batteries a minimum of one time a year. But our campaign is change your clock, change your battery. So daylight savings time is a good time to do that. It's difficult to do that, or you think I'll do it next weekend or the weekend after because I just got shorted out of an hour or I gained an hour. I'll do it tomorrow. But changing them at least one time a year is probably appropriate. But again, our campaign is 2 times a year. The importance of it is you want to have them in a strategically located place, but not too close to cooking smoke or steam or maybe exhaust from a car that would dirty them, because that's what gives you these false readings is these sensors get dirty over time. It could be a cobweb. It could be a spider crawls across it. It could be smoke. It could be steam or something, a fume of some sort that causes these crossing the eye of what makes these detectors go off. There are times when a carbon monoxide detector is going off at with the same pitch or tone that a smoke alarm goes off, and that'll even stump our firefighters. They'll go because somebody's called because their smoke detectors are going off, and they'll walk that whole house, and they'll look, and they're looking up, and for whatever reason, you can hear better when you look at something, and you'll go and you'll compartmentalize every door, and you just can't pinpoint it until somebody realizes it's the carbon monoxide that's usually low. And And so that's tricky sometimes. That's something that we would get tricked on forever and ever and ever. So we would have somebody on the crew that was specifically would look for the carbon monoxide, and the rest of us would look for the for the smoke detectors.
That's smart.
So it's there's a lot of things that can trick those things. And so when you do change your batteries, it's good to use like a can of air to clean those out and get the best of your 10 years out of those.
Nice.
Yeah, and to kind of prep for this discussion, we actually talked with one of our inspectors, Jason Ray, and he gave us kind of a fun fact of according to the National Fire Protection Association, which is NFPA, the risk of dying in a home fire is cut in half in homes with working smoke alarms.
Wow.
So pretty big thing there, 50%.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Wow. I'll admit that in the last home I was living in, there was a very poorly placed fire alarm. It was pretty much right above my stove. So every time I'd have steam come out or whatever, it'd go off. I got so mad. I got up there and I just took the batteries out. I'm like, I'm not having this here. There were other alarms in the house. That wasn't the only one, but I'll admit I was bad. But I did not leave my stove normally.
Yeah,
But
I think we all have stories like
Yeah.
that, though. I
Yeah.
mean, whether it's with candles or dryer lint or not changing the batteries, it definitely increases that risk, obviously. So I think this is something that we've heard and learned since we were in elementary school, but it's still things that we should make better choices as grown adults today. So I think it's a good reminder and a good reality check, too.
Yeah, you guys are like, well, good thing we're sitting here saying this
Yeah.
to her face because she just admitted to being bad.
Yeah, you're not going to get arrested. There's no, well, we're not the fire police. There is such a thing.
Citizens arrest right now.
The one thing McKenzi and I were talking about earlier is why do smoke detectors go off at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? It's never 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's some reports that it happens because there's a lower amount of energy being used on the grid at that time of night. And so if there's a power surge, it would trick those alarms into doing that. I don't know how valid that is, but that's a good reason to change your batteries right there, because finding the ladder, pulling your cars out of the garage to be able to get to your ladder or a step stool in the middle of the night is a bigger pain in the rear end than just getting them changed on a regular, during those 2 times a year. So if that's not a motivator, just wait until it happens and you'll think back like, I should have done that.
It's funny, when you were saying power surge, I was thinking witching hour.
Right. Yeah. We always call them the gremlins in the smoke detectors, because sometimes we can't figure it out. So we just stay there all night with you. No, I'm kidding. We don't do that.
We
We're gonna wait.
get our sleeping bags out and just
Yep. You guys
have
go
a
back
little
to
party.
sleep.
Yeah.
You back to sleep. We'll stand here and stare at you.
Oh, dear. Don't put that out there.
No, please don't.
That's funny.
So, I mean, can you provide guidance on creating a comprehensive fire escape plan for families? I mean, just different strategies for scenarios or nighttime evacuations, blocked exits, yada, yada, yada.
So this has actually been one thing that I recently talked with someone about, where I was questioned if I had one, and I dropped the ball. This is where I'll say I did something wrong. And I was like, I don't know. We're just going to go outside. We'll figure it out, and I'll have my phone. And really thinking through that, where in the middle of the night, if it's 2 a.m., I'm probably going to grab my phone. Which door am I going to use? I have a kiddo upstairs. What's my plan of attack there? All of those things, especially it adds on if you have animals and you have these things that you're like, I want copies of this. I want to make sure this is protected. That needs to be done beforehand. That plan needs to be established. Whether you have a safe room that has your documents that are going to stay safe, things that limit how many steps before you get out of the house to actually save your life, obviously is important.
Yeah, and just doing it, just having that conversation, it is really quite simple. Like you pick a place to meet outside. You live in your home, so nobody knows it better. It's, when we enter a home, we have to look at the outside and assume what the interior is like, but there's a lot of false spots in people's homes just because of the architecture. So we have to assume that the hallway is, immediately when we come in the door. And if it's not, then we have difficulty finding you. So getting out quickly and not worrying about the only thing you should worry about is yourself and your loved ones. Pets are difficult because people want to run back into those houses and get those, but pets typically find their own way out, which is good. So,
and we've had some saves here in Lawrence. We had a cat last year that ended up in the back of an ambulance, and they were giving it oxygen. And so good thing that family was able to back out a little bit and let the firefighters do the work and trust that system.
Yeah, I would say firefighters are probably save more pets than humans, which for obvious reasons, because we can get ourselves out quicker and we have hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've saved more animals in my time than humans
Yeah.
in fires.
In fires.
In fires.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think another thing is just calling 911. And we talk about quite a bit between us of when people call 911, and some people are used to calling 911. They use 911 for different things. Other people, like when I grew up, I was told you never call 911 until you absolutely need to. Well, then you start thinking through like, well, what is that point? What is that trigger point for me of when I think I absolutely need to? So I think understanding that if you're in a situation where you're having that like fight or flight reaction, probably time to call 911.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a dispatcher that answers that. If you in the next 30 seconds realize, oh, it's actually no big deal, at least they have someone in contact with you, can get resources coming, and if you don't need them anymore, they can downgrade. And it's something that we do quite a bit. Obviously, we don't want to overstimulate the system. Mm-hmm. However, you also don't want to put yourself at risk to have a not so great outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, and there is another line too, if it isn't an emergency, like life or death, that you can call. I don't remember. What is that number? Do you remember off the top of your head or?
I don't off the top of my head. You can Google it.
Yeah, there's a non-emergency line, but even if you're in doubt, you can call 911. They can route you to the non-emergency side of it, or they make determinants on what you're saying to them.
Yeah.
So they're fairly quick at that. There is some delay, not because they aren't processing it, just the way they have to follow the cards that they have to follow. So that leads them down this path of asking the appropriate questions. And it does seem like it takes forever, but it really does expedite. There's a couple of things that I just wanted to touch on the family escape is having 2 escape routes from every room, if that's a possibility. Have that common meeting place outside the big tree. The mailbox is typical because it's in the front of the house, and that's the best place to do it. It's still a little bit close, so maybe across the streets mailbox or maybe a neighbor to the left or the right is a good place. Practice those evacuations, escape ladders. So that is typically something that's an aftermarket product that you would purchase, but I have seen them used and they've been effective. Some basement homes, now the code is that you have to have an egress window that you will be able to get yourself out of and easily removed or easily to get out of the window. But then there's a ladder in that window well that will get you up and out of that window well. And then closing the doors behind you so that fire doesn't spread is also another good one. But like McKenzie said, calling 911 quicker than letting it be delayed.
Yeah. I mean, even just 911. I mean, growing up too, my parents were like, let's practice dialing 911. Do not hit call, but let's just practice dialing it. I did accidentally dial it and then I hung up really fast. Do not do that.
Yes.
And then we had to call back and they're like, hey, we just got my parents were like, why did you press it? And I was like, I didn't mean to. I hung up. They're like, well, why did you hang up if you're going to do that? I was like, I freaked out.
Yeah, they'll call you back. Yeah. And typically if there's a good explanation, nobody comes and they just laugh about it on the other line and they probably say, well, at least they practiced, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people hang up on me when I've been practicing calling growing up and they thought I was prank calling, but I was actually just practicing like ordering a pizza. I guess dialing 911, ordering a book from the library or Blockbuster, they would hang up on me. I was really bad at talking on the phone.
That's so funny.
Look how far you've come.
I know. Right now I'm on a podcast. I mean,
Much improved.
I go, hello, kind sir. Just very polite. People did not like how polite that was, I guess. But
That's hilarious.
Okay, next question.
So you talked a little bit about the basements needing like that egress window. Is there any other kind of regulations or codes that homeowners should know about that kind of touch into fire safety?
There's not so much that we could recommend here. There are some homes, the newer homes that are being built with some features, specifically residential fire sprinklers inside the home, which is, it's an added expense, of course, and it depends on, if you want to do that, but that is a possibility. And that obviously helps the fire spread, limits the fire spread. And choosing materials that are, non-combustible. There's a lot of houses in Lawrence that are really unique, and we drive past those ones that are, the architecture's, really doesn't match the the surrounding homes. But some of those homes that are made out of the non-combustible materials are both unique and intelligent on the fire side.
Yeah, and the city of Lawrence actually has adopted a fire code. And so if someone really wanted to get into the weeds, we do have a fire prevention division at Fire Medical at LDCFM. And so if you want to reach them, you can do that through our website. You can also do it by calling our admin building at 785-830-7000. And you just ask for fire prevention and they can answer some of those questions. And then later on, too, we have some information about if you want your home looked at for that home fire safety review, that's also available.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, in addition to residential properties, and we've been talking a lot about indoor fire safety measures so far, I mean, what should homeowners implement for outdoor spaces such as their yards, decks, and patios?
So coincidentally, we have a French intern staying with us until the end of June. He's been here. He'll be be here for 10 weeks, and he comes from the School of Bordeaux. And we tasked him with a project, and then we realized that project was somewhat unobtainable in the 10 weeks just because of how the structure is set up here with the county and emergency management. So we just realized the project was just a little too big for him because we'd never done something like that. And so he was bummed because his buddy who's in Colorado, I think he got the short end of the stick. His buddy's in the mountains, and here he is in Kansas. But yeah. He did ask, "Do you only grow corn here?" And I looked at him like, "What?"
And you're like, we have soybeans too.
Yeah, there's wheat. We have wheat. I don't think he knew what any of that was. But so the project now has turned into educating the wildland-urban interface, which is those outskirts of town that butt up to the county or what we would consider the rural areas. And so when you think about that, we have a lot of those spaces in town too. Him and I, the goal on Monday or Tuesday this week, we drove around for about an hour, and we were just hoping to find somebody out front just so we could say, hey, your house backs up to what we would call the forest or to a rural area of fields or prairie or something. And we couldn't find anybody outside. Well, it was Tuesday. They're working. So we didn't hit anybody, but I did bring him back to admin, and he interviewed a few people that live in the county and talked to them about some of their what they're doing. So keeping things like your grass mowed close up to your house at a good proximity away from your house, that'll limit that fire spread. Keeping those combustibles, stored in appropriate storage containers. And then if you're going to have a smoking area, make sure that you're smoking maybe on the patio as opposed to on a grass or mulch surface if you're going to be doing that outside, or just don't smoke. I guess that's probably that, because that was one of the things in the, another cause of structure fires is smoking materials, discarded smoking materials on combustible decks or something like that. But so he's putting some education together that we'll have on our website later this year. Hopefully by the end of the summer, by the time he leaves, this project will be completed enough. But it's a pretty big project. It's like a 60-pager. He's been working pretty hard on that. So we're excited to see what he's coming up with and what he'll recommend. But it'll be some education for not only just the wildland urban interface folks, but anybody in town, because there's a lot of trees that grow all year long. I worked at an agency to the east years ago, and we were mutual aided out here over on the east side of town for a fire that was near the neighborhood. So we worked that fire for hours. It was probably a full day or two before it was extinguished. So it was, it can happen anywhere. Just because you live in the city doesn't mean that you're not, susceptible to that.
Yeah.
And one major thing is there's burn permits that you can get if you want to burn out in your yard, you want a little campfire. There's different things that are on our website, but then also it can be found through calling our admin building and talking to the fire prevention crew. And you can make sure that the weather and everything's okay for burning. And then also it puts it in the system so that if someone drives by and they see smoke, they call 911 and say, I see smoke coming from this area of the neighborhood. The dispatch is aware that there's a permitted burn that's going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, and with fire pits and things like that, they have to be a certain amount away from the house in order to be up to code and it to be legal or whatever.
Yep. And so when you apply for that burn permit, it'll give you kind of like a long list of things that kind of a checklist. If you're going to do this, be sure that you have this. It's this size. It's this far away from the house. All of the things. So we try to make it pretty easy to do what people want to do as long as they follow those rules.
Yeah.
Nice.
I will say I heard a story a couple of years ago about a friend on Facebook that had a plant out on their back porch, and I guess it was maybe a little dead. It's kind of dry, and it was really near to their house, and it caught on fire. It just combusted it from the sun. I mean, they weren't grilling, they weren't doing anything, but all of a sudden they look out and there's a fire happening on their back deck. And I mean, yeah, just keeping that stuff cleaned up too. I mean, that would have been something that I wouldn't have thought about. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I still have a dead tomato plant out on my back patio from last year. So maybe I need to get that cleaned up. But people just don't think about doing stuff like that, or that could be a possibility too.
Yeah, and we have a group that goes out and investigates all the fires, specifically in the city of Lawrence. And so it is really interesting to hear about that investigation of how they find out where that fire originated. And a lot of things are like, oh no, that could have happened to my home.
Yeah.
It's not someone that did it on purpose or that left something somewhere that sounds stupid. No, it's something that I would probably do that I need to be a little bit more aware of.
Yeah. Just wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we already talked a little bit about resources, but I know you have more that you could share with us too. So what resources are available for homeowners to learn just more about fire safety and preparedness in the community?
Yeah. So a few things. LDCFM has a Facebook page. We try to post a variety of things, whether that's information about incidents that we respond to, things that are going on with our department kind of socially, but then also home fire safety items. And so the department has a home fire safety inspection program, and you can find that on our website. So if you go to lawrencekansas.org or lawrenceks.org, if you type in Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical, LDCFM, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can get there. Home Fire Safety Inspection Program is really what you're looking for. You can actually go there and check out this home checklist that can be utilized in ensuring what you're doing, your part to keep everything safe at your home. But then also LDCFM is always there if you need something, and you can give us a call. And that doesn't necessarily mean call 911 for something like this, but you can give our admin building a call, and we'll figure out the right resources for you.
That's awesome.
Sweet. Well, are you guys ready to just hop into Fact or Fiction Safety Edition, Fire Safety Edition?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys can elaborate on any of these points too if there's more than just a yes or no answer to it.
Perfect.
But the first one, opening windows during a fire can help ventilate smoke and improve visibility for escaping.
That's true, but probably to a detriment.
Yeah.
It actually would pull the fire towards that open source of air.
Oh, okay.
So it obviously makes sense to do it so you can try to see a little bit better.
Mhm.
If you just have cooking smoke that there's no fire and you're just trying to ventilate, then absolutely do that. Try to get a fan next to a window and open up as many windows and clear your house out as quickly as possible. But in the fire, don't worry about that. Just if it's your only way to escape, then absolutely do it. But if you're doing it, just try to get ventilation. You're most likely harming yourself, and you'll pull that heat and fire towards you.
Doesn't oxygen feed fire?
Yes.
You're like, Lexi, that's a basic fact.
That's a good thing to bring up.
But you remember it.
Yeah.
Next one, smoke alarms should be installed near the kitchen to detect cooking-related fires more effectively.
I hate to say fact because of the simple fact that we talked about. If you have one right above your stove, I think that in good proximity is okay, but you really just have to know your talents. If you really, it just depends on the ventilation of your home, and it's most likely already going to be placed. But I think a good proximity away from the smoke or steam is probably the best option.
I forgot about that fact or fiction when I brought up my story earlier, and now I feel really bad.
It was a good story. It was worth it. We kind of touched on this one too, but homeowners should replace their alarm batteries annually, regardless of whether they're still working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once or twice a year is wildly appropriate.
Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless, making it impossible to detect without a detector.
That is true. And it can come from any appliance that is from natural gas.
It's safe to leave candles unattended when used for decorative purposes.
That's true. As long as they're not lit or their battery.
Yeah.
So, everybody wants to have that real ambiance of a candle, but you can only enjoy the ambiance if you're there. So
Yeah.
if you leave the room, even if it's for just a few minutes, then just go ahead and blow it out or snuff it out.
Awesome.
I do not understand why people make candles that aren't meant to be lit. I honestly don't understand the appeal of it or what makes it. I mean, some of them look pretty cool, like those ones that are coming out that are like squares, but then they have like the bubbles all over them. So cool looking. You can't light those candles.
Just like melt on whatever it's on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't understand the point in them. It just doesn't.
It's a style.
Somebody's art.
Yeah.
This might be an unpopular opinion to some, but
The safest candles, you could say.
yeah. They're the safest candles
are.
for
I know,
fire
that's right.
safety. Yeah.
I
Oh
love
my
it.
gosh.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on today. Is there any kind of final message that you want just to really stick in people's minds or anything?
We're still the neighborhood fire department and EMS service, and we encourage, conversations. There's conversations that happen all over this town, specifically with, fire protection and law enforcement and EMS all the time, and we want to be a part of those conversations. So if there's questions, please ask us. We are a all hazards fire department, so we have our hands in a lot of things. We would love to be perfect at everything. That takes resources and support, and we would love to continue to do that, and as well as we've been doing it in the past. So we appreciate the opportunity for today.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
being on.
and I'd say nobody should be afraid to go up and talk to any of you. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of fire medical, and nobody's been just outwardly rude or mean to me. Everybody's been pretty nice. So, I mean, they aren't
Friendly group.
They aren't scary people to go up and talk to.
They're not. And we do have a form online that if you go submit interest for having a truck visit, whether it's an event or I can't think of the different types of events, but we've had lots of requests. And so you can ask and say, hey, we're going to have this block party. Can we have a fire truck come out? And if we have the resources to do that, we try to fulfill those.
That's awesome.
And then it makes it a little bit more, I think, informal for kiddos and other family members to see firefighters with the big fire truck, and they can talk about some of those safety things right in their neighborhood.
Does that cost money?
It does not. Nope. So as long as we have the resources and we're able to go, we send those resources. If they get a call, then they're going to head out of your neighborhood with lights and sirens, which is actually a pretty cool thing to see.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you.
So fire medical isn't going to charge us to learn about fire and safety.
No.
No,
You said you're not afraid to talk to anybody. We do have some talkers, so make sure you have some time on your hands. So be careful about that. Choose wisely. We're not going to tell you who's the talkers.
it's a game.
Yep.
It's a game.
love
Oh my
it.
gosh. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
and if any of the bay doors on the stations are open and someone's driving by and they have a question, you can, if you see some firefighters, hop by and say hello and ask those questions. And same thing with the grocery stores.
Nice.
So if anybody wanted to do like a tour of the fire station, is that something that they would have to schedule beforehand, or would they be able to just walk in the front door and say, hey, I want to learn more about this?
Both of that is the answer. Is you could stop by, assuming that they didn't have something planned. We train every day. We have inspections. They do have a schedule during the day. It's not just to sit around and wait until something unfortunate happens. But there is a form online that you can fill out for a tour, and we'd love to be able to accommodate it that way. That way you get a better experience, that we can have a plan. So we may leave a firefighter behind if there's a call, and then if the call needs that person's service, then they would just escort you out. But we want to make sure everybody gets out of the station safely and doesn't get hit by a truck that's leaving, and then that other firefighter can catch up in a different vehicle.
Nice.
I would say one last plug for LDCFM. We have an application that goes on your phone. It's called Pulse Point. And Pulse Point is primarily for cardiac arrest, so like heart attack victims. But the way that we've been able to use it is also to communicate out to the community of the calls that we're going on. When they see the fire truck, where's the fire truck going? When they see the medic unit, is it going to a fire? Is it going to a medical call? And so you can download it. Anyone can download it for free. It's on the Android and iPhones. It's Pulse Point. You can look up LDCFM or Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical. You can subscribe and you can kind of see what we're doing and see where we're going.
Awesome.
We can be a little Snoopy. You guys should name your trucks. So I know like in Wichita, they name their like snow trucks.
Yeah.
So then when you're trying to see where the snowmobiles are going, you can see like Terminator
Yeah.
or like Snow Dozer or like whatever they want to name them. So, I mean, it'd be kind of fun if you guys named your trucks so then people could see that on the app and be like, oh, blah, 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 I was going this place or.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll let you pitch that one.
I think we're probably going to keep it here, but I do think it's a good idea.
They all have their
out
own,
there, you know?
yeah, they all have their own kind of mascot or emblem or logo per their station for some station pride. So you'll see that on the side of the trucks, and that's something that they promote. And they have shirts or patches that signify which station that they're at. But sometimes that works. We have a really dynamic roster, so you may come into work one day expecting to be at Station 3, and you might have to move to Station 2 because of whatever certification or rank you hold. So pretty dynamic roster there. It's never a dull moment.
Yeah. Like, Lexi, that was a really good idea. Let's keep it coming. But we'll
Let's
table
polish
that
that
one.
idea up a little bit.
That's one that we'll save for when some rumors are going around the department. We'll say, well, Engine 5 is now going to be named
Yeah.
whatever. So we'll keep that in our back pocket.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys for
Yeah.
joining us again and taking the time out of your day to come and just talk with us.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah,
was
we
fun.
loved
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to Flint Hills Mortgage, who's our sponsor, and the Lawrence Public Library for letting us use our podcast studio.
We forgot to say this in the other episodes, but please like and subscribe if you
Yeah.
haven't already so you can get notified when episodes come out. I forgot we were going to start saying that. But I'm Lexi,
I'm Emily.
I'm McKenzie.
I'm Kevin.
and this was Lawrence Real and Local. Thank you. Signing out.
Thanks for joining us on Lawrence Real and Local, Keepin' It Real podcast. We appreciate our guests taking the time to join us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you've enjoyed today's episode.
For more information, please visit us on the web, www.lawrencerealtor.com. And remember, whether you're buying, selling, or simply dreaming of your future home, we're here to help. Until next time, keep it real.
And happy house hunting!